All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Too Many Hobbies podcast. I'm your host, Brian Althorpe. This is the season finale of season 2, and I wanted to have on a special guest. So we have Eric Massey coming from Kansas. We're going to be talking about his waterfowl experience as well as Tanglefree Waterfowl. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Brian. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's a big honor for me to have somebody that is from a company that I buy so much stuff from come on and just talk about not just Tanglefree, but also, what you've got going on. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So you live in Kansas. How did hunting in Kansas kind of evolve into where you're at today?
So, Kansas is probably it probably used to be a destination spot. Maybe it is still for some, but we started with, huge reservoirs out in western Kansas with Cheyenne Bottoms. We have Swan, which is, just up north. It's actually in Missouri, but it's just north of Kansas City. And it's Squaw Creek where all the snow geese and everything comes. So it's been a, target rich environment, obviously since I was a kid. But when I was a kid, mostly everything around here was duck clubs, right? Like duck clubs were the big thing. It was, you lease, have a small house or a trailer and the guys go and you play poker at night and that type of thing. And I didn't have that background or anything, but what I had was, a want to get into those places and hunt those places and things like that. So kind of what I was able to do was work for them, do either, some type of guiding or just brushing blinds and, that type of thing. And I would get access when maybe members and people weren't there and that type of thing. And it was great, but duck clubs are renowned for ups and downs, right? I mean,
Yep.
When they're good, they're good. And when they're not, you're still out there with your buddies and that type of thing. And when I was younger, just being out there with just my buddies and maybe cooking breakfast in the blind wasn't enough for me, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to see them at 10 or 15 feet. And I did want to kill them. I was pretty, aggressive when I was younger. And I watched a couple videos, and one of them was Tim Grounds, right? Tim Grounds to me was like, he was the guy. And I wanted to go to Southern Illinois. I was like, I got to go to Southern Illinois. I want to kill geese, big geese. So when I was growing up, our goose population, we could only kill 2 a day, and they were tags. You had to put them around, had to put them around the legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? So we would figure out a way, because I'm in southeast Kansas, so I'm close enough to Missouri. We would go to Missouri, kill our 2 in Missouri, come over to Kansas, kill 2. I mean, if you killed 4, it's like, holy, you were the man. So I wanted to go to Southern Illinois, and I went down to Southern Illinois, and I actually was not that impressed. What it was every 200 yards, there's a blind, you get in the blind, you shoot out, you come out of the blind, they take you back up, that kind of thing. You pay a guy
I see what you're saying.
His geese.
Yep.
And then I started, internet started coming out, and right out of high school, I started, finally getting some videos and things like that. And then I was a big VHS guy. So I was a Duck Commander VHS guy. Yep. I was, and when I saw what those guys were doing, I was like, that, I got to figure out a way to do that. These guys are hauling trailers and they're, doing all this stuff. And, at that time, I'm not sure that I'd ever hunted like an X field, right? I don't even know that I knew probably late 90s what maybe an X field was called, right? Yeah. I mean, big feeds and roosts and things like that, and all these terms. I was just like, holy shit, like this is
start opening your eyes up.
Yeah. Then the calling kind of obsession starts, right? I mean, then you want to get better and better on a goose call and duck call, and of course first call was a Tim Grounds call, and it was a flute actually at first, and then he came out with a short reed goose call. right?
Okay.
And I won't get into a debate on who started, short read goose calls. That of course, you have Jeff Foils, and of course, you have, those guys. But my first one was a grounds call, and I mean, I made a sound out of it, and it was just a squelching noise, and just, I was like, whoa.
Everybody's made that noise. Yeah.
Oh my God. But they were aggressive. I mean,
Yeah.
I liked that. You could like scream at them and that type of thing. So the obsession kind of started there, and then it kind of went to wanting to get into, wanting to get to know people who did it, and wanting to
Okay.
get people that were like me, right? Because I had a
Yeah.
lot of weekend guys or whatever, and I was like, how do I hook up with a guy? I want to hook up with a guy who's, doing this stuff and that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then it was, looking at what was used to be called the pro staff, right? I mean, we now know that's just promotional staff and everything else, but that was a huge word, right? Back in 2000, and
Yeah.
Avery was pretty much about it. You wanted to, everybody wanted to be on Avery, and they had their own forum. Remember the internet forums, and you could get on there. That's where some of the original keyboard warriors started.
Oh yeah.
And then, so as soon as that started, then it kind of turned me off too, because I was like, all right, I want to meet some of these people that are like me that want to do this. I don't want to be yelled down to. I don't want to be yelled at, that type of thing.
You want to find people that you're on the same plane as, that you think the same as well,
Yeah,
instead of being
absolutely.
degraded. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was lucky enough to have a guy who was doing filmography at the time with a giant camera or whatever for Buck Gardner. And he was hired out of college to go film, with Buck Gardner. And I was like, oh man, these you're going to be on one of those VHS tapes. You're going to be famous. And so I got to know him, and then I got to kind of know that side of it, and some of the TV show stuff of Buck Gardner. And then I was able to hunt on some of those, because back then a lot of those guys, for most of them, that wasn't their primary job yet, right? They were doing that to supplement income or do it on the side or whatever. And so what they would do is they would have these networks in different states. They would travel to Missouri at the time and hunt with somebody in Illinois and that kind of thing or whatever. And so I kind of wanted to be the Kansas guy. I wanted anybody who was going to come to Kansas and film. I was like, so I started reaching out, to different people or whatever. And I was like, hey, I'll do it. I will line up 2 days of hunting, whatever it is you need, and that kind of thing. And so I was lucky enough to get on, do that a little bit with Buck Gardner. And then it got into some of the decoy companies, right? Looking at some of the stuff, and we're waterfowlers, so we tinker, we build, we design, we do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that stuff was cool too, but Avery owned it, right? I mean, Avery was that was it. They had everything, every category, right? They had A to Z or whatever, and it was what it was, right? The Avery Ant Farm and that type of thing. So I had gotten into that, and one of the ways in back then was calling contests. That was a big thing. That's where you got to really meet some of the people that thought like you said, that were the same kind of thing. They were really big at the time. You had qualifiers and state, and of course you had worlds and that type of thing. So got into that, started meeting a lot of people. I met a guy named Freddie King. I don't know if you've seen some of his stuff, right?
I know exactly who that is. Yep.
So Freddie was traveling and filming calling contests, right?
Okay.
And that's what he was doing.
Yep.
And this was before a lot of he was always a dog guy, but
now he's a real big dog guy.
Now he's a real big dog guy. And so so it was cool back then, man. You could there were different avenues in, and you could meet people if you were willing to be open and just communicate. The internet started opening up all kinds of doors at the time, because you could email people in the background, and you could tell them your story, and you could tell them what you're looking for. And I would say the biggest thing is just like in, your regular job or anything else, if you could show a little bit of value,
Right.
you could, you could get people's attention.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest ways was people like you, consumers,
Yep.
end users of the stuff.
Yep.
And all of a sudden it was like, okay, this is starting to make sense a little bit. Well, Avery started getting away from it because I think they got so big, they didn't really want to listen to a lot of their end users, right? They wanted to,
Makes sense. Yeah.
they kind of wanted to be they were the gorilla, at the time. So I'm at Rogers Sporting Goods. I'm seeing all my buddies and, doing calling contests and things like that. And at the time, Buck Gardner was there. Him and his son were there, and they were going to do a signature decoy. That was a big thing back then, right? You get
Oh yeah.
you put somebody's name on a decoy and this, and they were doing it for a company called Tanglefree. And the only thing I knew about Tanglefree, but it was just line. At all of my sporting goods stores, it was just Tanglefree was just the big spool of line, and that was really it.
Yep.
And the ink, and the original bullet like anchor system,
Yep. Yep.
that was it. Had no idea that they made decoys. And so the guy, Corey Foskett from Tanglefree, was at Rogers Sporting Goods, and he's talking to Buck Gardner and this and that, and we start talking about just some things that they're doing. And he's the most humble, open guy. He opens his doors on, he just opened the light to all kinds of different stuff that I didn't know about, manufacturing and where stuff is. So at the time they were actually private labeling. The decoy company was actually called Bond, and Bond was actually making decoys, for Tanglefree. And Tanglefree had not really entered into making their own yet or whatever. At the bottom of the decoy still said Bond. You could find them at like Westlakes and Ace Hardwares and small stores all over California where Tanglefree started. And he started asking me, if you could, design 2 or 3 brand new products, what would they be? And I was like, a goose decoy, a full body goose decoy, a duck decoy, a different position, a different this. And we started talking, and he left Rogers Sporting Goods, and it probably wasn't a week later, and he called me, and he was like, are you willing to have a conversation with, a guy overseas that makes some of this stuff or whatever? And I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, this is so cool, And again, it opened a bunch of doors into reality, really, what it was. Because I had a skewed sense of reality at the time. I thought Tim Grounds was a gazillionaire.
Yeah.
I thought, Fred Zink was walked on the clouds. It was just like, what in the world, And at the time, there was a guy named Sean Stahl who had been true OG, had been doing it forever, started in the guiding business. And I was just like, those were like the pedestals.
Right.
All of a sudden I start meeting or through Corey, some of these guys, and I'm like, well, wait a second. So these guys have real jobs, and they're supplementing income through this, or they're doing this on this time or whatever. And I'm like, I think I get this, I got it. And so Corey and I just absolutely hit it off. And then from then on, it was just, like brothers. We spend so much time together now. And so that's really where I got to as far as into Tanglefree. Once I was in to Tanglefree, and once, Corey and I started, just getting into what we wanted to do and where products and things like that, end users. We had to get to end users, not to names, not to big names, because we went down that alley and it really was not the right one for us. We wanted to get to a guy who, maybe nobody even knew about, but a guy who guided 52 or 55 days out of the year. A
Right.
guy who picked up and then went to snow goose guiding in Arkansas. We were like, we want to talk to that guy.
Yeah.
And what is it that he wants, right?
Right.
What can help that guy, harvest more birds? That was really it. And it's easy to get out of that. I mean, it's really easy to get a brand, build a brand, and put out a rubber shoe, and then put your logo on it, and and try to sell it.
Right.
But if it doesn't, there's so much other stuff that goes into it. There's margins, and there's all kinds of different things that I at the time was just like, I didn't think about it. I was under the Avery model. I wanted to make every single product and put the Tanglefree logo on it. I was like, I didn't care. I wanted to put everything. Corey's like, no. Corey's like, easy. Let's, And then he started opening the door a little bit up to some of the finances, and I got to see, some of that. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. It doesn't make sense.
Waterfowl companies are not as big as everybody thinks they are. Because we're so deep into this stuff. I mean, we that's all we think about. That's we live, breathe, sleep waterfowl.
Yeah.
So when you see a company and you're like, but you're buying those products from, you're spending that much money with them all the time, you are just assuming that everybody else in the country is but really about exactly right. 1% of 0.5% of the population is spending money on this stuff.
Is spending money on that stuff. And so, naturally as waterfowlers, we tinker and we design stuff that helps us specifically. Yes. Right. And it helps us in our certain environment or whatever. How do you take that and then mass produce it to where, it's going to help a lot of people, right?
Right.
Gun cases, gun slings, things like that. They're easy to go through your mind and think, man, if you just did this or that or what, well, but that's for you. You walk into a marsh, right? You have walk-in hunters, you have boat hunters, you have that type of thing. Those are different. Those are really different environments, different end user environments.
Right.
You had guys that would spend all their time in goose fields and layout blinds. Guess what they don't want? A gunsling that's going to hang up on a pin or something else. I mean, a gunsling is one of those, yes or no things, right? If you're in the timber and you want it, hanging on there and that kind of thing. So that's where we're at now. And that's like the fun. That's kind of the fun part, is trying to navigate through that stuff. The panel blind was obviously that was just such a cool project. That was unbelievable. It was it was a napkin design as much as you could ever come up with a napkin design. But I don't think he actually did it on a napkin. I think, Stahl had it written down, for a long time. And the premise is not like some new design. What it was things that we were doing growing up our whole lives with cattle pens,
cow panels. Yeah. Yep, there you go.
It was, I mean, first years and early guiding, that's what it was, right? You would do 4 cattle pans, and you would, you would grass them, and you would do evergreens, and you would do things like that. So he had always had this in his mind, like, how could I mass produce one, or how I could do it. He actually drew it the first time, and he actually was going to do it while he was still with Avery. Thank God he didn't.
I mean, they still did, but yeah.
Maybe a little late on that.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, that's right. So what was cool at the time was he had it in his mind. He had, the drawings. He knew what he wanted it to look like and do. And what was cool was I was able to share with Sean, who Sean is, he's been around. He has heard and seen everything. And so when you get like that, I don't want to say you get tainted, but you hold stuff close to the vest, right? You're not as open and that type of thing. So it took some convincing, but I'm like, what I have gone through and shared and done with Corey, I think you could do the same thing.
Right.
Like, I think if you wanted to, you could pitch this to Corey, and you could, I mean, he may fly you overseas. I mean, he will let you. He has the trust. When Corey has the trust in you, he just allows you to do that stuff. So it wouldn't be you hand the idea off to Corey and Corey's going to take credit for it and Corey design, anything like that. It was going to be. So it took some, but he did that, and Corey led him do everything. So he was on so many conference calls with guys who don't speak very good English and are on the wrong time zone. So he stayed up late, got up early, that type of thing. But he really got into it too, because it was someone. It's like giving the keys to the car. It's like, holy cow! I mean, they give you all the resources or whatever. So, I don't even know years wise though. I mean, we hunted. The first time we hunted out of them was in Saskatchewan, probably 7, 8, years ago or whatever. And they were sort of prototypes. And they were the first ones were too tall. At least for me, they were way too tall. Corey had to have them shipped to en route. So we picked them up on the way, to Saskatchewan. Really? I mean, because it was last minute stuff and everything. So to see those and to see where they have come now is just that's really, really cool. So, the term innovation gets right. I mean, everybody loves that. It's going to get thrown around. And there have been plenty of people that have innovated or designed stuff, right? I mean, the first layout blind, now every layout blind is a copy of another layout blind. Well,
of course.
Because you can't design a new, you can tweak and you can do this or that. But that panel blind, that was just such a cool one because it was like, wow, you saw it from napkin design to,
from that point of view, it's probably the craziest road that you've ever been on.
Yeah. And then, you make tweaks, right? He's done stabilizer bars and he's, done different things with the panel blinds. And then, so then what we did was, with that, I was just, it was so cool. We wanted to do a couple other ones like that. We did the go-to bag. And the go-to bag was very similar. That was a, gosh, Corey, I don't know how much money he spent, but we bought all kinds of bags. And the bags, one of the bags that we really, really liked was a gun range bag. Like guys who, not military, but guys who are real big into shooting and stuff. A lot of times they have small slings and that type of thing. But it was only like this big. I mean, it was just like almost a shoulder thing for a pistol, and it had
they're real tiny and
But it was like, ooh, that is cool. Can we make it bigger? Can we do this? Can we do that? So we started buying different bags and stuff, and we tore them up. We literally ripped the fabric off, started, piecing them and gluing them together and that kind of thing. And then we were at SHOT Show and we pitched it to a couple different people or whatever, and got people who make bags for a living, people who make Orvis and Sims and fly fishing bags and that type of thing. There's a reason that certain pockets are in certain places on those bags, right? If you're not a fly fisherman, you get one of those things and it's like there's a little pocket on the side and you're like, what the hell is that for? Well, there's a reason it's there. It's always for something and that type of thing. And that idea was kind of cool. So we wanted to do that with the bag. And so the go-to bag came. Of course, it's a sling bag. People have done it. It's a round or that kind of thing. But the process in it was cool. And when you go through a process like that with a product, you not only have a ton of pride in it, right? But you are able to, control a little bit of your own destiny, right? You get it out to people and they give you feedback and you get to do that stuff. So those are the super cool things that, the panel blind, the snap blind.
Snap blind is cool.
The snap blind, right? I mean, how do you get a blind without any pins and things like that? that was, we had that idea for a long time as far as, you know, how do we do it? And people had tried it. People had tried bars that came down and just hooked and
Locked
things like
in.
that.
Yeah.
But the plastic was like, this can be a nightmare, you know. And I've guided enough. I've seen dudes, large individuals, then they try to get out of the blinds this way, and they
That's
do,
what I
you
have
know.
to do.
And it's like, oh man, it's like you're just looking at it, going, oh shit, don't break,
Yeah.
don't break, you know.
I think my dead zone's gonna break every time that I lift myself out
You
of it
lift
like
up
this.
out
I'm
of it.
like, oh, don't
Yeah.
break. I'm like, that's a Tanglefree. It'll be fine.
I've seen guys sit, right? They sit on they actually sit on the back, and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh shit, don't, you know. So it was like, yeah, you know, I was probably the biggest skeptic on the snapline because I had, you know, done that, and I had done some guiding and seen how dudes get
Oh,
in and
yeah.
out of them, and the mud and the, you know, all that stuff. Well, we again at SHOT Show and through some of Corey's connections and things like that, ice fishing huts. I mean,
Oh, like Otter and those
yeah,
brands. Yeah, yeah.
worst conditions, coldest conditions you can get in, everything else. Well, guess what all those pieces are? They're plastic.
Plastic. Yep.
But it's a blend, right? I mean, that's the big word for plastic, is it's a certain type of blend and certain type of thing or whatever. And we were
Yeah.
like, boom, that's, you know, that's what we need. So those pieces of plastic are, you know, are a certain blend that won't crack under weather. And I'm not saying we'll never break, but you know, we
Yeah.
have a guy in Western Kansas, Ben Webster from Big Kansas Outdoors.
Yeah.
Great outfit and everything else. Run snap lines, 17 or 20 of them, you know, and all that. And we're always pinging them, you know.
How are they holding up?
How are they holding
And
up?
yeah.
What, you know, anything break, throwing in and out of the trailer? How are you putting them in? How are you, you know, using them? How's, you know, that type of thing.
And that just goes full circle to the, like we were
Yeah,
saying, trying to find the people that are using them every day and use that as your R&D.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. If you want R&D, you give Goose Guide something, and I mean, he's gonna find a way to destroy it or break it, or you know, that type of
Run
thing.
it
So
over,
yeah,
have
so
fly out the bed of a truck, and yeah.
those are the cool things. Those are the just really cool projects, and Corey allows people like myself and Sean Stahl and people like that. He allows us, whether we're full time or not on payrolls, he takes that trust in us and allows us to do that. And that is what I wanted from
Yeah.
day one when I was going to a calling contest and I met Freddie. You know, that is what I wanted. Now, did I have a dream or hope that maybe I would do it and it would be a full-time job?
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I didn't know at the time. You know, I didn't know what finances were, and I didn't know what these waterfowl companies made or whatever. So
Right.
in the end, you know, I got exactly what I wanted. I'm able to design some stuff and do that type of thing for Tanglefree. Whether it's again part-time or full-time or whatever it is, I'm allowed to do that stuff. And that's what you know, that's ultimately what I wanted. That's all I wanted to really do. And the reason, you know, I get to interact with all those people, Ben
Yeah.
Webster, Christian Locke from Hurt Locker,
Yep.
Bryce Dakin from Front Runner, you know, all of these guys. And then what we ended up doing was Stoll started, you know, he went to RNT full time, right? So he got a full time job at RNT, and when he did that, it was like he made the texts and the calls, and it was like saddle up. We're you know, now we're the Goose Crew. We're really gonna do some stuff. You know,
The Goose Crew. I love it.
We're really gonna do some stuff. And so, what we would do for a while, we would find some of these kind of up and coming guys. Christian Locke down at Hurt Locker, you know, actually reached out to Sean Stahl through Instagram and was like, we run Tanglefree stuff, man, if you guys want to come here or whatever. Well, we started showing up, but we would use our stuff. We wanted to show people, you know, what it was like. Trailer door open up, all of a sudden these panel blinds are already grassed. You put them out, the stabilizers are there, all of the stuff. And it was just like, whoa, that's pretty, you know, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the guide outfitting thing, came about, sort of that way where, and those are big orders, right? So when we
Right.
stopped selling to big box stores, because it used to be that was your year. You would go to SHOT Show, and if you got a container or two from Cabela's and you get a container at Rogers Sporting Goods, like those were your orders.
Right.
How many SKUs do they want and that type of thing. When that went away, that income goes away for Corey. And so
Right.
Guides Outfitting is a huge business because they make big orders and they usually do it repetitively. They
Right.
want to refresh their gear and that kind of thing. And
Yep.
so that was right up my alley too. Number one, I got to meet people. Number two, I got to show off our stuff, and number three, we got to hunt.
Yeah.
So
it's like everything that you were hoping you were going to get to do.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's also the concept of like in my job, there's been times where I go places and like we used to make one of my jobs, we had customers that were like Kellogg's and stuff like that. And you're going through grocery stores and you see this stuff and you're like, I was a part of that.
Yeah.
Or like now when I'm making glass, it's like I see products like I can lift up a beer bottle, see our company logo under, and it's like that's cool.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more personal for you when they pull out a panel blind and you go, I could tell you every single part on that thing, where it comes from, how it's designed, and then you show up to these big outfitters and with a trailer full of stuff that you helped design. It's like, look, there's a sense of satisfaction.
It is huge sense of satisfaction. A lot of those guys, had the same ideas. A lot of those guys were like, oh man, well, we're using this and that, but to take the idea and then mass produce and put it to something like that is just,
right.
was just really cool. So,
well, and something like the panel blind, I mean, like I have made my friends buy more of them because we end up taking them so many places that like we either need more for other people. But I bought my first set of panel blinds probably 4 or 5 years ago, Max 5 panel blinds. I have used them for every single thing you could possibly think of. I use them on the shoreline when I'm diver hunting, use them in the field when we're goose hunting, field when we're duck hunting. I've set them in front of a boat and used them to like hide the boat. I mean, there's just and they fold up so nicely that it takes literally minutes to deploy them, get them set up. If they're not already brushed in, it takes a very short amount of time to brush them in. And there's the biggest thing for me when you see other like A frames or G frames or whatever they want to call them is the viewing ports in front. Because then you don't have people's heads sticking up over the blind and you can grass them in perfectly. You can just pull the brush to the side and you can see out of it without making a big silhouette come out of the top of it. It's one of my most versatile pieces of equipment that I have.
And even after 7-8 years or whatever, we still learn things each year. So this year we've had a problem with so we take the backs, right? We take the backs and we label them, each one, so we know that it's a back. And you're going to take that grass and just go to the top of the panel blind itself, right? On the front, you're going to take grass that goes up, and the reason is because you're going to if you put flip tops on the back, they won't fold over.
Won't catch,
hit the grass. So, the first year we didn't do that, so then all of a sudden, boom, we learned that, and then the next year we learned how to put two of them in a row. Right. We wanted to make it to where you could walk all the way through it. Well, how do you do it with the doors?
The doors. So,
you fold open the doors, you put the stake, so it's like each year we learn something. So this year our thing was, how do we keep grass on through several trips? Right. Now we do all kinds of different things with evergreen trees and trying to make different dimension and things like that. But Sean had found a synthetic grass that he had got. We take it up to Canada, and what we did was we put it on the tops to where they hang over just 4 to 5 inches or whatever it is. And it's sort of it's a really good color, that would kind of match everything. you wouldn't want to just use it, but we use it as just the base.
A base layer, yep.
And then come over and, you know, do all your grass and everything that. But what it does is no matter what, however you store those in the trailer, because that's a tough storage thing, you know, I mean, because we'll travel with 12, 15 of them. Do you put them this way and then they turn this way and the grass, you know.
Yeah.
With just that little bit of synthetic, you can always at least count on that you're going to be in there. You're not going to look down, and there's going to be one that just has nothing on it, you know.
Yeah.
Where the guy's just pie face and the entire time. So, so I love that about that thing too. That you get to, you know, each year we learn a little bit more. We learn how to do it. The stabilizers were not even a part of the original layout.
I remember when they came out, it was a few years after I had gotten mine, and then I ended up buying a set just because we do have times where we set them front to back instead of just lining like a tree row or a rock line or something. And generally those times are when we're not on the lake, so it is windier, and we've had issues with them blow over. And so I'm like, well, those came out. I'm like, I'm picking those up right away, and that solved everything.
Yeah. And those were, it was funny, those were originally made in Kentucky by Phil Holloway, a guy who's on the Goose crew that travels and everything with us. And he has a fab shop. He has a metal fab shop. And everything.
Nice.
So again, you know, we had all the poles and we had shit everywhere, right? We came up with stabilizer across the top.
Yep.
And that was to try to get the exact distance. I mean, we would sell these things, and then we would see people's, you know, how they would use it. And I mean, as soon as I saw a picture, I'd be like, oh shit, that is not gonna, you know, the gap was, you know,
or you could just see right like, down in it.
Oh man, you know. And that's still, we still work hard on that. Sean Stahl up in Canada was, we had hunted one day and he took a full hour. We haven't gotten a lot of these out yet, but they're coming out. Short videos. We kept the camera guys there. I stayed. Sean was there, and the camera guys, the rest of their crew kind of went off, started scouting. And he spent time on each one of those little things about why we do this versus that. You know, when you line them up and the doors open, that leaves a gap, you know, at the top. So how do you get a flip top up, you know, on the back? He did a video on that. He did you know. So, you know, that's how the stabilizers came about, was just, you know, again, in users and using them, and, you know, how can we get them quicker, more stable, easier for people to do? Because I had seen and witnessed people trying to set them up with the, you know, with the poles and things like that, and people had their struggles. And it's another piece. It's another. Those poles were another part, you know. It's just having to store those, and then these stabilizers. Most of the guys that I see now are not even, they're not even folding them up. You just, you know, you leave them like this. You just, you know, put them in the trailer.
Right in the trailer, yeah.
You're taking those out, and what we'll do is we'll do like a line. We have a string that's wrapped around. We'll get the wind. We do all of that. Sean always tries to, you know, he wants to kind of 45 them or whatever, because at times, depending on the sun and everything else, it's tough to belly up. I mean, you don't want them just completely bellying up to the. So we'll take a string, and we take that string, you know, just like you're doing a project and you do it on the ground, and that string is how we keep it straight. And then we take the stabilizer bars, put the bars there, you know, and the bars are there, and then the tops come. And we'll do the tops, or we'll do the fronts. You put the fronts on, and it'll stay completely upright, you know, without the backs or whatever. And then the whole back is open. And then you start bringing in your chairs, your bags. I tell guys to go ahead and get their guns and their bags and stuff like that or whatever. Well, we started doing that, and we were like, man, how much would this help, like, guides and outfitters, without even knowing? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how to, you know, that's how to do it, right? You get front set up, and then you put the seats in and tell your clients, you know, grab a seat from here down, and, you know, that type of thing or whatever. So it's just so cool to be able to have, you know, number one, a mind like Stahl, but then have Corey, who is open to some of our crazy ideas. And trust me, we've had some that did not pan out.
Yeah, well, I think everybody does.
Yeah.
I mean, every company will try something, and if it doesn't fees the company, then it's just not, there's some things that just aren't going to make the bill.
Yeah. And we it is easy to when you get a brand. So the three feathers, at the time, the Tanglefree logo was sort of a cursive kind of scroll, and the last E had this, kind of weight that went down. And
I have the 50th anniversary shirt that has that.
Yep. Which is super cool that we did that and everything. That 50th anniversary, that's a huge deal when you
Pretty sure that's what
look.
this is.
Yeah,
it's on the shoulder, on the arm. Yep.
And so when we looked to rebrand, we wanted something cool. We wanted refreshed and cool and everything. And Jeff Simpson at the time was doing a bunch of Yeti stuff, and we were at SHOT Show, and the stuff he was putting out was just cool. That first one of the first Yeti, and then one of the first Sitka. So he was doing a bunch of stuff for Sitka, and we were just like, we hadn't even worn or done anything at the time with Sitka.
Yeah.
But the way they were doing it, their logo was clean. It was cool.
Yep.
It was. We went over to their booth at SHOT Show, and the catalog was white. It was like a white catalog, and you would turn it, and each picture with just a full white background just stood out, right? And it was damn, that looks cool. It looks clean. It's like, and we were like, damn, like that's that's cool. And so he came up with all kinds of different stuff. We had Corey and Corey's sister and Corey's dad. There was 5 or 6 of us, and we would vote on stuff, and we would like this and we didn't like that, and that type of thing. The scroll was easy enough, right? We liked the new Tanglefree scroll, that's clean. But logo was like, woo, what do we do there? And I'm glad we listened. I don't even know if it might have been Corey's sister or Corey's dad, but we wanted to keep the pintail somewhat in it, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Because the one of the first Tanglefree logos was always the this pintail. We were like, so he had come back with some sketches of the pintail, and then the 3 feathers, right?
Yeah.
Which as soon as we saw those, your mind goes to Nike,
Yes.
It's like and you're just like, damn. And then it just went from there. We were like, dude, I mean, 3 feathers. Then you get a sticker with just those 3.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted. We wanted a brand where you could have a sticker that didn't have your name, and someone would know that it was. And I was like, that's cool as shit. Because at the time, everything was a circle.
Yes.
You had a circle, and you'd have cup ducks in the circle, and you would have all kinds of stuff.
And it works well for like hats and stuff, where there was like, that was the thing, is just having like a circle with your logo in it. And if the logo doesn't fit in the circle, it looks weird. It's not designed in a circle fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what's nice with the feathers is that because the Tanglefree name is long.
Yeah.
So just having that little logo on there for anything. I mean, you can put it on. I mean, I have a million of them on everything that I own, but it's just like you said, it's clean, it's simple, and it's just I'm not going to say it, most waterfowlers know that symbol.
That symbol. Yeah. Avery did a really good job way back in the day. It was just a clean. If you saw the Avery name and they just had that, I think it was
there's a few cattails. I think
a cattail at the end.
Yeah.
That was really recognizable. I mean, that was known. Everything else was circles. You had cupped and committed and FA, and you had all this stuff. Zinc, you just had big bold letters, right? You had the name or whatever. And we were like, man, if we could if we could do a logo, if you could do, if you could get known by a symbol, that would be pretty badass.
Oh yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
And it blew up at the beginning with the 3 feathers. We've had to make some changes. I don't know if you're aware of some of the Adidas.
I don't
put a.
Oh no.
Yeah. So probably one of the coolest hats of all time was just the 3 feathers.
Yeah.
It just had the 3 feathers or whatever. Well, obviously we had done our research. Nobody had done it. It wasn't there, but Adidas came and didn't go as far as like a cease and desist, but they gave a big warning. They have a brand that's called 3 Stripe Life. So it almost looks more like a pyramid. There's a small triangle, then a bigger triangle, then a bigger one, and that type of thing.
Okay.
And in soccer, they turn it sideways, and in football, they do different stuff.
Really?
And we were like, "Oh shit!" So Corey went to his attorney and was like, "Hey, can you look at this?" And that type of thing. And that's one thing in waterfowl, you got to have a really good patent attorney.
Oh, we'll believe it, yeah.
He went and the attorney read through it and didn't even read the entire thing and was like, "Yep, you need to stay away from that."
No way.
And we were like,
no, I had no idea.
So you'll notice like that shirt, you can't see the bottom of it, but it says Tanglefree at the bottom.
Yeah, okay.
So we cannot have now apparel that just has the 3 feathers on it.
That's blowing my mind right now.
It's got to have, it can have the scroll underneath, it can have the pintail, it can have something else in it. It can't just be the 3 feathers by themselves. So if you have any of those first hats that have the 3 feathers, just hang on to them.
I think I have the only one that I have that has just the 3 feathers on it is the American flag hat.
Yeah.
That has it in the
In the Oh,
where the stars are, yeah.
That was a great hat too. Yeah.
It's in rough shape. I've worn that thing. I've worn it out. It's not black anymore on the front. It's all white, and because I wear it when I fish, so like it just has gotten sweat.
Oh, so sweaty.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's disgusting. Yeah. No, that's super cool that it's
Isn't that crazy though?
That story is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just to see like where that's evolved to from the old logo to this, and like I'm assuming that when you guys rebranded, that was part of the direct to consumer shift as well.
It wasn't at first. It wasn't at the time. The rebranding was done first. Loved it. The catalog came out awesome. We were on a great trajectory. We had met at the time. We had met some guys. So the way some of the sales used to work was, and still does, independent sales reps, right?
Yep.
So Avery back in the day had actual sales reps, direct sales reps that worked for Avery and sold Avery products.
Yep.
That's not it's not a business model that works. I mean, because those guys make a lot of money, they make commission, they make, that kind of thing.
Travel expense and everything.
Then it got to independent sales reps, and there's guys out there like a Jeff Watt, coffee company and different things. And what they do is they're an independent sales rep and they have different brands.
Right.
So they carry, a lot of different brands.
Okay.
And they do the sales for you. So they go into Cabela's, they go into Bass Pro and things like that.
Okay.
It's a good model, except for that those guys are in a way controlling your own destiny, right?
Right.
Because they
have to push your product.
Yeah. They go into that meeting, and that's a big meeting. I mean, that's a face-to-face in Sydney, Nebraska with Cabela's. And that's somebody who doesn't necessarily work directly for you that's selling your stuff.
Yep.
How is he representing you? What's he really saying? Right. They started carrying so many brands that it was like, okay, well, how are you going to push us over, Rig 'em Right? Right. So we had independent sales reps that would have both Rig 'em Right and Tanglefree and that. And it's like the lines started getting drawn where like, you're like, whoa, at first maybe they were just rigs, and then they, that started getting more difficult. But because of those guys, we were able to form a relationship with Sitka. And Jonathan Hart at the time was, kind of captaining Sitka at the time. He had split off Jonathan from QU and that kind of thing. So we were like, well, let's do what we do best, which is how do we get in front of them? How do we, this and that. So Corey invites him out to his ranch. Jonathan Hart actually lived a couple hours away.
Oh, no way.
Drove to Corey's ranch, and what do we spend the day doing? Shooting ground squirrels, shooting all kinds of shit, having IPA beers on the truck. It was just like, what? I mean, this is the guy.
That's the perfect business meeting.
Oh, it was awesome. And so, that's when it was like, man, could we get some of this Tanglefree stuff? Could we put it in OptiFade? At the time, there was one pit bag. It was a Beretta. It was a Beretta gun case and gun bag, and that was the only license that could do OptiFade.
Really?
So we were like that. Corey's sole goal was OptiFade. If we could get this shit in OptiFade, because the Sitka, it's crazy at the time. Yeah. So we were the first licensee for OptiFade, and it wasn't from Sitka, because at the time Sitka had sold to 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐿. So it was
so it's through 𝐦𝐨𝐿. Okay.
It was through 𝐦𝐨𝐿, and that license was like, holy shit! It was, you can't do this, you can do this, you could, all of this different like regulations. Corey set the way. I mean, he was the first to do it. Now there's a lot of licensees. Rig 'em Right has it, and a lot of different people have it. Momar, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was a cool, that was a cool relationship and that type of thing.
Gosh.
And we recreated that with First Light.
Yeah.
So not that you probably won't see it in more places or whatever, but that term innovation, gets thrown around, but we can take some pride in that Corey went through that trouble and through that grind to open that up.
Right.
Now he opened it up to all these other competitors and everything else. But he did the same thing with First Light. He will be able to stamp that he was the first licensee for First Light. Which
it's a big deal.
It is. It's interesting. I mean, that's a different. Those big game guys are tougher.
Yeah.
They are. They have their big game stuff. They're big on layering, and they're big on that stuff, and they got their crispy boots, and they got that stuff. And when you talk about waterfowl to them, they're like, well,
it's a whole different world.
I'll wear the shit I have.
Yeah.
What do I need? What do I need that? I'm not gonna. I already have it. Maybe it's in a different camo, but come on.
Yeah.
Come on, waterfowl guys.
They don't see like the different backgrounds and be like, oh, I need to wear Marsh OptiFade, or I need to wear Timber OptiFade. They're like, I got this whatever sub alpine or something, and they're just like, I'm good. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But it's different. I mean, like I listened to the Punisher episode with the guy from First Light explaining like how they're making the transition to waterfowl, and it's like the pattern is different. I will say. I will say that I have the First Light dead zone blind, and that looks phenomenal in the field. It looks really nice.
Yeah, a tough lesson we learned through the OptiFade thing that we're learning through First Light too, and it's good because we're able to give First Light some of this feedback. That pattern looks different on different fabrics. So if you put that OptiFade on a denier fabric, on just a pure canvas denier fabric or whatever, it doesn't look the same. if you put
lighter,
it on,
darker, or something. Yeah.
yeah. So we had to deal with all kinds of different, fabrics for that layout blind as well to try to get the pattern to look, like it should.
Right.
Because a guy who goes in and spends his $1,000 on his, Sitka jacket and pants or whatever,
Yeah.
and that's it. He don't want to blind and look down and it just look completely different because it's on a
Right.
different,
Yeah.
on a different fabric. So we're getting into that now with First Light. Our gun case is a real heavy denier fabric that's over several layers, and a couple of those layers are waterproof, and then you have glue, and then you have fabric, and the way they're put together.
Yeah.
One of the first ones that I got that had the Typha on it or whatever, I was like, it looked like a banana. It was it was pretty yellow.
that bright.
It was,
yeah.
And I held it up to like something else that I had, which was like a gun strap or whatever, and I was like, that doesn't.
It's not the same.
That doesn't look close. So that's kind of cool, but we're getting there with the, with the First Light, but that consumer base is different. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But
well, it's funny because I have almost all of my waterfowl gear is Sitka. I went to that from whatever I had before. It's worked out phenomenal for me.
Yeah.
But I saw the First Light and I'm like, it's different. And I trust you guys. So I'm like, I'll pick up some Tanglefree First Light stuff and see. So like I bought a second dog vest. That's the First Light. Bought the gun case. That's First Light. My marsh stool First Light. The dead zone blind. And it's just interesting taking some of the stuff that I already had that was either in Max 5 or Optifade or whatever, and just seeing the difference when you're out in the field.
Yeah.
Like if I have my dog with his First Light vest on and he gets into his Mow Marsh, that's the Optifade Marsh, and so it's just cool to see the differences and be like, is it really that big of a difference? Probably not, but like you said, we're waterfowlers and we like to tinker and we like to see differences, and it's just
What Sitka did for me, and I was with Sitka very early on, as ambassador and that type of thing. It gave us street cred that us waterfowlers it didn't have, and we didn't have a lot of. Columbia had a really good jacket. Drake Waterfowl was but the jackets were all overweight, oversized, huge jackets.
Heavy too.
Sitka came along and gave us, guys like me and Goose Guides and Grind. They gave us some street cred. We never heard of layering. I just put on, 2 more hoodies or just 4 more t-shirts, and stuff like that. And it gave us some credit, right? We were able to do some of that stuff. That first they came out with that Pantanal bib and it was uninsulated.
Yes.
And I was like, how could you possibly have an uninsulated bib?
Yeah.
At
what
the
would
time
this be
I
good
was
for?
wearing Nat gear, right? And it was called Winterceptor fleece. I mean, it was like sleeping bags on your legs. And I was like, I'm never wearing anything else. This is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
I didn't know, about if you layered and then you put complete windproof over top of that.
Right. How much of a difference it is.
No way that's gonna keep me warm. And it was just like, holy shit. I mean, it was like, I tell people all the time, and I know the debate, it's the great debate about price and this and that or whatever, but at the end of the day, they gave us some street cred, and they took their knowledge of big game hunting and those guys, and I don't think we give them enough credit. I mean, I know some waterfowlers who, live on powdered donuts and Red Bulls.
I mean, like you said, we don't give the big game guys enough credit for kind of paving the way for a lot, especially the insulation portion of the gear.
Had you ever heard the term next to skin before, I mean, before kind of Sitka? I mean, hell, I didn't know what it was.
Under Armour, I guess, would be the closest thing, but that wasn't an insulation.
It's funny you say Under Armour. One of the first Sitka ambassador deals was that you got X amount of money to spend. So they would give you credit and you could, purchase different stuff. So, but you purchased at MSRP. So it was kind of like, so if they gave you $3,000 in credit, it was like, you had to
your Hudson bibs were $700 instead of the 40% off.
So I was like, oh shit. So I log on and I'm like, okay, well, bibs, gotta have bibs. So Pantno bibs. And then, that ate up a bunch. And then I was like, okay, I gotta have a vest. I want a vest. I'm a vest guy.
I
wanted that. And then I was like, and then you gotta get a jacket. So I got this big ass, the Pantno jacket that goes, that goes way down or whatever. I didn't get anything else. No, I didn't get any next to skin stuff. I already got no layering stuff. So one of the first times out, I was in Under Armour, so I do Under Armour cold gear. I do like a hoodie. I put this freaking jacket on and I'm out there for like 5 minutes. I'm like, oh shit.
Dying.
Like I am dying. I'm like, something is not working. It was just holding everything. And I was like, so then I got to, know some of those guys. And there was a guy, Matt Brimmer, who was kind of like in up in the Pacific Northwest. And he was one of the first like directors of the program and stuff. And he was like, you idiot. He's like, he's like, you need, he's like, you need merino wool. And I'm like, merino what? Like, what the hell? What are you talking about? No, I'm a goose guy. I wear sweats. I wear, this. And I got some of that stuff or whatever. And I was just like,
game changer.
Oh my gosh, it was game changing. It was how to breathe and different stuff. It was, I still tell people all the time, you still got to try a bunch of stuff. I mean, people just run at different temperatures, right? I mean, and when you don't hit it right, you pay for it. If you run too hot in the morning, setting out 110 dozen goose decoys for little geese, you feel it the rest of the day. But that stuff, I was just like, and then I was bought in, and I was like, I'm getting underwear. I'm getting freaking Sitka underwear. I'm freaking doing this. I'm doing, I'm doing that. It's just, it's crazy. But those guys, so to be able to get Tanglefree with OptiFade and be associated with Sitka in some way, right? Was absolutely just, trajectory was skyrocketing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the mindset too when you start getting into the, especially with the OptiFade, that like if you can get a layout blind that matches your jacket or matches your bibs, it's like, huge. Absolutely. Yeah. I'll buy boots that match my OptiFade and, dog blinds and all that stuff. And it's like
all that.
It also helps too, I think, the uniformity of it when you're in a field for brushing. Because if you've got somebody that has a really dark layout blind, like for instance, I have, like I said, I have that First Light Dead Zone, and then I also have the Tanglefree Ghost Dirt Blind. Yeah. So like brushing those two is completely different.
Yeah.
The Ghost Blind is so dark, and like it works great for like bean fields. It works great for like riverbanks if we're hunting on like the edge of a river or like a pond or something. There's instances for it, but like if you have 5 OptiFade layout blinds and you're using the same cover, everything's going to look the same and you're going to hide better. Same thing with like the Max 5 panel blinds. If you have Max 5 panel blinds running all the way down, it's easy to brush those the same way and they'll all look right. They won't, nothing stands out.
Yeah.
So I think that also does too help.
Yeah. And if you take into, if you take that model, that Sitka model of sort of bringing street cred to, to guys, if you take a little bit of that and insert it into waterfowl as well, into some of the products and like the go-to bag and like the snap blind, and you go into those with that type of thinking, like get away from the norm, try something different,
right?
Make it for trying to make it for the masses. I mean, the hardest part in product design is can I make something and am I going to sell it to 100 people who could really, really use it?
Right.
Or, or could I sell it to 10,000 people?
Right.
And maybe they use it, and maybe they don't, or maybe they
Right.
don't, that type of thing. We get emails constantly, all the time about new products. They're not bad. Some of them are a little weird. We actually have a list that has some like the top, like a Letterman top 10 of the worst. They're all for specific things, right? I mean,
yes.
We have a guy who sent us something. I've never even thought about this. He hunts in an area. It might have been Utah. I'm not sure, but wherever it was an absolutely clear lake.
Okay.
Like one of those ones that you could see down 4 feet and see the pebbles and everything else.
Yeah.
And he says that the strings, and we were like, strings, what do you, he's like, yeah, you put, 40 of those things out there, you back away, and what do you see? You see a black string hanging, and we're like, what? I mean, never in our mind. He wanted to take a string and wrap like a leafaflage around each one, and he had done it. Like fish tanks, guys have those fake, things like that or whatever. He had done it. He's like, oh, I think you guys, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's great for you.
It would only be for him. Yeah.
I mean, Oklahoma is just completely red dirt, nasty pond. Like you don't even see shit. I mean, so those are the types of things. We have all kinds of that kind of stuff, but it's cool. Again, gets you a contact, you get an end user. So we love to hear from end users. It's a guy who's using your product all the time. So you don't want to just push him to the side. But to go through those and really find out, which ones can we do?
What's viable?
What's viable? What can you sell it for? That type of thing is cool. So
what I appreciate about like what you guys have done is that like for me being in like I more specifically target divers than most anything else. So I do goose hunt, I do puddle duck hunt, but like I was telling you, the channel has essentially shifted its way to focusing on diver hunting.
Right.
Your guys' diver decoys are
foam-filled.
Incredible. Foam-filled. The paint on them looks fantastic. They ride well in the water. The size, proportionally, they work. The bluebills aren't these giant bird. I mean, everything looks fantastic. But like you said, that's not everybody in the country isn't hunting divers, but you guys have taken the extra effort to put into them to make them what they are.
Yeah.
And that's what I like, that you guys don't half-ass any of it. You whole-ass the whole thing.
Well, we're the direct-to-consumer helped you do that because those like the independent sales reps that were sort of representing you at a time, some of them would bring product designs. Well, the product design would just be because you didn't have it. So they would go into a meeting at Cabela's and they would say, hey, Cabela's wants to order this SKU and this SKU, and you're missing this SKU. So, you guys should really make that. Well,
okay.
That's not really a reason to make something is just because it's missing out of your portfolio. Right. Yeah. What we wanted was, because then you're designing it for, and you really have no certainty that SKU that Cabela's would buy it the next year. Right. They want to spread the wealth. And I understand that they want to give other people other opportunities. And they only have so much space. So for diver decoys, they're like, we'll pick up 5 of your SKUs here, but we want to give Bandit or Avery or whoever else at the time, we want to give them some diver space too. They're coming out with the new one. So we're going to pick up 2 of their SKUs and drop your 2 SKUs. And you're like, well, why, you're penalized. They're dropping 2 of your SKUs, not for performance related.
Right. Yeah.
Like, wait a second, we didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. They're not underperforming. You just want to give, space to other things. And that was that was tough. That was
Oh, of course, yeah.
sort of the straw that kind of broke it right there. And then,
Yeah.
Corey looked at all kinds of direct to consumer companies. I mean, everything from Vice golf balls, which was one of the first, it was a direct to consumer for golf balls, high end golf balls, right? You can't buy Vice in stores. You go to the website, to do this, looking at all kinds of different, models and seeing, how we could pull it off and that type of thing. And now you see it in, I clearly Dive Bomb has, taken storm with direct to consumer, and they're doing it correctly, and they're coming out with a lot of stuff. Now they have a little bit of different strategy. I mean, they're putting that logo on everything and anything.
Right.
And if that works, to build a brand and to get up, then that works. We've tried a little bit of that. But we would rather, maybe put those dollars and that type of thing, because it costs you money. I mean,
of course,
they come out with rubber boots. I mean, those things, it's a lot of money to build them over there, get them sewn, have them shipped over here, or whatever. We'd rather spend money in some other areas. We want to bring back, this is funny, when you talk about that big bluebill, we had a Magnum duck decoy.
Okay.
I mean, it was a huge one. It was Illinois. I mean, it was guys who hunt, big Illinois River, Missouri River, and those type of things. And they, boat space, that type of thing. And I mean, I would look at this thing and I'd be like, this is the dumbest thing. I mean,
30-inch decoy.
Who the hell, would grab this? It was as
You'd
big
be
as
surprised.
That's it.
Yeah.
That was one where it was like, are we selling to 100 people, or are we selling to, and then you had to open your eyes, because maybe Corey and I, maybe we're not the majority in some cases.
Right.
Corey and I are not the majority in divers. We have to rely heavily on other people for that.
Yep.
Illinois River, Missouri River, we don't do those things, and so we have to rely on other people.
Yeah.
The goose decoys and panel blinds and layout blinds and that type of thing is up my alley, and stuff that I do day in and day out. And but the diver thing and this. So we're looking at it. Looking at getting a mold made and everything, and getting back into the Magnum.
I saw the Magnum mallards on the website, and I was like, huh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Probably gonna pick some up. So
guys would rather on the Illinois River, heavy currents, things like that, they would rather throw out 12 of those than 5 dozen regular decoys.
Yeah. Well, it gets their attention. Like we've hunted small water around here, and like if there's a spot where birds are working into, that's you don't want them to fight for space, but you want them to see it from afar. Wherever if they're cruising over and they look down, there's 6 real tiny little like teal or something.
Yeah.
They're not going to see that, but there's a 24-inch Magnum mallard there. They go, huh, all right, let's see what this is about. And they, you have a better chance. I can understand that for sure. And I think that's why I say, like, you would be surprised, is because that's how people around here like to hunt. And like on the big water, if you talk to 100 diver hunters, 85 of them are going to say, oh, I want Magnum black ducks. I want Magnum bluebills. They want the biggest ones they can find. And I've hunted over, Magnum canvasback and bluebills, and I have foam filled old herders that are Magnum black ducks that I have on long lines, and like they work. Right. I mean, it just
why has flocking not taken a hold of diver decoys like it has puddle ducks?
I think that has to do with just the coloring on the bodies, because if you've got a flocked mallard head, the lighting is going to change and it's going to look different. If you've got an overcast day and you've got flocking on the head, it's going to be a darker shade of green. Or if you've got the bright bluebird day, it's going to be a lighter shade. And I think that people that puddle duck hunt see that change and they can attribute it to their success, where like diver ducks, when they see if they see a black silhouette there, and we
Yeah.
don't really, it's not a whole, if there was a flocked like bluebill or something, I'd buy it just to see the difference, but
Yeah.
there isn't. Nobody
Yeah.
makes them, and so there's not a need for it. Where like if you mallard duck hunted a lot and you said like I need 24 flocked head mallards, those are going to be perfect for what I do. Well, I have 10 dozen diver decoys. If I'm buying more for the quantity as opposed to the quality of the decoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I can get a black and white decoy, like if somebody came out with like a shadow type series diver duck and they were just like, this is a GoldenEye mold and it's white and black,
Yeah.
people would buy the hell out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why a lot of people that diver hunt also like buying black ducks. And like, yeah, the flock black ducks are great because they work well for diver hunting and they work well for puddle duck hunting.
Right.
The flocking,
Yeah.
it's just not a priority.
It's a yeah, it's a tough consumer, as well. Like our perceptions are waterfowl is the strangest and sometimes the dumbest consumer world where, it's one of the only ones where, you buy, these guys go out, buy a brand new truck, and they treat it freaking great, right? I mean, the guys at the car wash every Saturday, Sunday, it's,
Yep.
Pristine, this and that. And he wants it, to last. But
Yep.
he'll buy a flock decoy, and if that flocking, and he'll bang it and throw it in boats and treat it like shit, and that flocking comes off in 60 days, we get an email with a picture. These suck.
Why is this coming off? Yeah.
You're like, holy shit, man. I mean, look at the environment you're in. Look at
the thing that
flocking
I hate
is tough.
The flocking's tough just because you're at the mercy of the adhesive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also like they make slotted bags. You can put like you don't have my biggest pet peeve in waterfowl hunting is when people say I'm so hard on my gear nothing lasts. It's no, you don't take care of it.
You don't take care of it.
Yeah. I have slotted bags for everything, and if I really am that concerned about it, they go in the slotted bag.
Yeah.
I also don't take Texas rig decoys and launch them into my boat. I will lift them and set them in. Like,
yeah,
it just that part of it really irks me, because if you're that concerned about your gear lasting, take care of it.
Yeah.
Just like you said with your truck.
Yeah.
You don't want it to rust. You're gonna drive it through a field. If it gets mud on it, you take it, power wash it, and then you park it in the garage or the barn.
Right.
But if you spend $120 on flock decoys, you're not gonna spend an extra $30 for a bag to put them in that's gonna make them last longer. I just don't.
Yeah.
It does not make any sense to me.
Yeah. The customer service portion of it is can be difficult at times.
I believe it.
Because you're talking to a guy who, probably is wearing $3,000 worth of shit, right?
Right.
I mean, he's probably spent that on Sitka. He's now shooting on average $1,000 shotgun, right?
Of course,
anywhere from $1,600 to, even a pump is $500 or $600.
Yeah.
So
$600 in tungsten
or whatever, and then this type of thing for customer service for a decoy is just like, what?
Like, yeah, and then nobody it's really I don't envy the being a customer service person, but I respect them because of what they have to go through.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, and we get to we now get to learn that stuff from how First Light is doing it. We're really interested in this, this announcement about waders.
Yes.
That one is very intriguing. How do you warranty those? How do you service those? That type of thing. How are they dealing with that? So we're going to really keep our eyes and ears open and that's half the fun with partnerships is we're able to, kind of learn from them how they handle some of this stuff and that type of thing. Because Sitka waders, yes, I have, I had one of the first pair, I think number 11, that's still written on the inside.
That's
and then
great.
I have another pair, and I had all the same thing that everybody else did. I had the break in the neoprene at the, that type of thing. I wouldn't say it was, but how they handled it, how Sims handled it, and those kind of things. I mean, we're interested in that to find out how people are doing that and that type of thing, So
Yeah. Well, you also have like the people. So if you get customer service questions and like say that somebody does come in, they say, "Oh, I use these decoys for 60 days and the flocking just ripped off of them." And then you say, "Well, maybe you should have taken care of them." That person is going to go on every waterfowl forum and just bash
everywhere.
the name. So like I'm sure
Facebook will
that
be,
takes
yeah.
it'll erupt on hardcore waterfowler and everybody will lose their minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I believe
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well,
We're excited about the first light stuff.
yeah,
We're excited about some of that. We're going to continue to grow the RNT relationship with Sean Stahl and John Stevens and those guys. I mean, what great minds to, tap into there.
oh yeah,
And then, yeah, I'm gonna stay on the Goose Crew as long as I can, and
as long as they'll have you.
as long as they'll have me, which you know we're gonna continue doing that. RNT-V I think is in season 17 or 18 or something, and which
That's
is
crazy.
just amazing. One of
Yes.
the longest running shows, and then Tanglefree with their 50th year. No, don't have financial backers like a lot of people. I mean,
Yep.
it's solely and privately owned by Corey and his family. There's no red, there's no debt. They're paying themselves. They're just in a great spot, great lane, easy to jump out of it. And
Yeah.
he has to tailor me back because I do see what dive bomb and people are doing, right? I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
going to not notice, what they're doing, and I kind of
Right.
want to rev up and that type of thing. And he has to put me in my place and that
The
type of
voice of
thing.
reason.
And he's in a really good place, but then it's easy to back off, and then it's easy not to,
Yeah.
come out with a new decoy and stuff. Like I said, we have a couple new molds with ducks. I think we're there with the full body goose decoy. That production was that was a 3-year fiasco of hard plastic, soft plastic, different blends, motion state, all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of prototypes out there. I'm searching the internet for a lot of guys had prototypes, and how waterfowl is. These dudes turn
Yeah.
around and they sell them.
Yeah.
We've had to go out and buy prototypes back from people and be like, whoa, hey, we don't want those out there. But we're there. That's produced. We went to a plastic. It's not a soft plastic. It's a hard plastic, but
Yeah.
we're there with that. Continue some stuff on the panel blind. Some looking at some pockets and some different places like that. We don't want to over accessorize that thing and make it more difficult. I mean, it's simple for a reason, but we're looking at some of that stuff or whatever. We're going to continue some stuff on the snap blind. I think that's really big. And then, the divers are just, anything and everything we can learn about divers. We wish you guys hid better. I mean, we still don't understand how you guys just sit out there in a boat and don't hide, and they just come and fly to you and you kill them. Like, that's still hard for us to totally understand. So we wish you guys.
That's why we don't need flocking.
Yeah, we wish you guys used more gear out there than just decoys and guns and shells. But
Well, that's why I also have 3 separate boats for doing different stuff because for divers, I have to have a big lake boat. I have to have a
Yeah.
boat that I can haul my layout boat on. A boat that will also fit 10 dozen decoys, my layout boat, all of our
Jeez.
gear. It's just it's 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 a it's a really really big change from like marsh hunting.
Yeah.
When I first started doing it, it was just like my mind was blown. I'd never
Right.
seen anything like it. I've been walking through this same marsh for 3, 4, 5 years, and then I meet up with some guys and like, you ever layout hunted? I'm like, I don't have any fields to go in, and they're like, no, no, no. They're like, this is out in the middle of the lake, and I'm like, you're out of your mind, but yeah, I'll go. It just
Yeah.
since then it's just that was the second bug. The first bug was waterfowl in general, and then the second bug was diver hunting.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain to people, when you're laying out in the middle of the lake by yourself, and then you have 30, 50, 100 bluebills come in and land at like 10 yards, and you
Yeah.
sit up and you're looking them in the eyes, and you're
Yeah.
like, it's hard
Yeah.
to explain that to somebody, and that it's also it's just tough. You're in a boat that's moving, and you sit up to shoot, and it's just
Yeah.
something.
That
It's
was
otherworldly.
the panel blinds versus layup blinds. I mean, that was a huge thing for guides and outfitters. Was you never know what's coming into camp, right? I mean, so if
Right.
you're running 6 or 8 guys, you know, just a couple of weeks ago, I was right after January, I went out to Front Runner in Emporia, Kansas, and they were having 5 guys come in.
Yeah.
Well, 4 guys walk in and I meet them. The 5th guy walks in and I'm like, oh shit. That dude is not getting out of a, no offense. I mean, but
Yeah.
he's not getting out of a layout line. He was a
No.
big, he was a big man.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have, I mean, if you're trying to turn and burn pretty quick, you want to shoot, you want to get out, not burn something, hit the
Yeah.
roads, if you're doing that type of thing, you can't have a guy who is getting up at the first flock, maybe gets a shot off, but doesn't, he's like, oh, I can barely
Right.
get
Yeah.
up. And then
Yeah.
you can't do that. And so the panel blinds gave these guys an opportunity, peek through the porthole, see it.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it was, you would, if you got 10 or 12 honkers in and you had 5 guys, you usually have 4 to 5 dead birds on the water.
Right.
Now all I have to do for clients is get them 5 or 6 goes,
Yeah.
and I can do 5 or 6 goes with honkers. I can do that with now a feed of 175, 115, as long as they come in 10s and 12s and things like that.
Yeah.
Boom. That's huge. That's game changing for me,
Absolutely.
I mean, so same thing, like you talking out there. I mean, there's probably a lot of misses in layout boats out there.
Oh yeah. I've seen people go through. I've had times where I've gone in and I've shot my 6 birds in under 10 minutes, and then somebody goes in and they shoot 2 boxes in an hour and a half, and it's like,
yeah,
it's all experience, of course. Like I've gone through it plenty of times where when I was first getting used to it, I'm shooting a box of shells and shooting two birds, but like,
yeah,
it also depends on the bird. Like, buffleheads fly faster than bluebills and golden eyes and redheads, and then you go sea ducks, and it's like, well, eiders and scoters feel like shooting geese because they're coming in so slow, but then a old squawk comes flying by and you're 12 feet behind it. Like, it's just there's so many different variations. It's pretty
had
insane.
at Hurt Locker in El Dorado, Kansas, we got really hooked on how close can we get? Can we finish lessers? Can we finish lessers like snow geese? Can we finish them on top of us? How up close and personal? And the best way was blankets. And so we Corey came out there. We took 100 different versions and we made, so there's a blanket now. There was a company called Rancho Safari that was kind of making one of the first ones.
I know what you're talking about. Yep.
We were doing that, and we would do it, and it was the most fun that we had ever had. Well, we tried to carry that to clients, Now ask a
Okay.
guy who's on the ground on a wedge under a blanket. Now ask him to flip that blanket off, grab that gun and do
Yeah.
that. And on lessers, if you don't have a 10,000 feed, you may get 3 goes, 4 goes at a time, right? That guy, the first time he gets hung up in the blanket, he doesn't even get a shot off, and you're like, oh shit, And then you get 4 of those goes, and he's shot his gun twice, and he looks at you and he's like, I mean, are we gonna stay here all day? And you're like,
right.
That's it. Like
that was the whole
we
feed.
know we've been watching these birds all day. I can tell you that was the last go. You're done. So it's experience. It's that type of thing. But that's what's cool, right? Making all those different tools for different environments, different people,
right.
Different things like that. So
like you said, you've got to find these people all across the country that can kind of R&D it for you and figure out, like, is this going to appeal to people? Is this an actual problem that we need to solve? And then incorporating that into your guys's, business model and seeing if it makes sense. And then, just
all
trying
the way
to
down
get it out to
even
people.
The walk-in hunters. I mean, that's a huge portion, right? I mean, you got public
At least
guys.
half.
It's the public grind, and they they do that. The 360. So the panel blind that is called the 360.
Yep.
That's huge. How could we incorporate the panel blind that we use for 12 goose hunters? How could we do that for the guy, who's going to go out there
by himself
and go by himself or whatever? And that was a big one, because the way it folds up octagonally, can go on a sled. Guy could pull the sled out, easily can fit on a 4 Rivers layout boat or just a small aluminum boat or something like that.
It's compact.
Those guys are, those guys are awesome. I wish I could design a bunch of different stuff for those guys, but
it's tough.
That stuff is tough, right? I mean, is it backpacks? Is it sleds? Is it this? Is it that? But those dudes are crazy, right? Those are the 1 a.m., 2 a.m., save my spot, go out there and,
We've done that too. Slept overnight and done the whole deal. It's but it's a huge portion of waterfowl hunters. There's
it's where most guys started.
Right? Exactly. And then as generationally we start to kind of swing from one generation, another generation of waterfowlers starts to come up, they figure it out, and then everybody's learning the same way that they did, somebody else did 10, 20 years ago, but now it's just a little different.
Yeah, that's a whole
same concept.
Whole nother podcast is that younger. I struggle with that.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people
I'm a big part of it. I know it.
Right.
I realize that that at times I don't put out the best, perception. So that sucks when you know that you're part of the problem and not the solution. But that's why I like to do these types of things. I like to talk to you. I like, that no, I did not, at no point did I start in this, great place with Sean Stahl and be able to kill limits every day or whatever. I wanted to do that, but I had to do all kinds of different things to, try to kill 2 a day, much less 4 a day and this and that. And now some of these kids want that pretty quick. They don't want to walk out by themselves and do that. They all of a sudden think 10 buddies and we're going to kill, a 10 main limited geese. And if we don't, it sucks and this and that or whatever. And, that sucks, because I know that Stahl and I know that myself, and sometimes we put that perception out there, but that's, do you want to watch a 30-minute TV show of us just struggling for 3 days trying to, in a lot of cases it's reality, but that's not what people want to see.
Exactly. I've struggled with it too, just because I mean, the videos that I put out, I'm not shooting limits all the time by any means, but in Ohio it's a tough it's a tough waterfowl scene as far as, bird numbers go. We just aren't a big flyway. We are for divers, and that's kind of why I've shifted to what I did. But I feel the same way because I know that there's people out there that look at videos, especially YouTube, just because it's so easily accessed, that I don't like to give the wrong impression. Like we have to work for a lot of the birds that we find. I always try to err on the side of education as opposed to like bragging. Where like
Yeah.
if I shoot a lot of birds, I'm gonna explain what I did that I think helped get me to that point, as opposed to saying like, oh, we're just out here killing it and we do this all the time. It's like, that's not the case. There's, maybe 1 in 3 hunts is worth me filming, and that's what I end up editing and all that.
Right.
And there are times where I do put out the 1 to 2 bird days because people do relate to that and they appreciate seeing it. But I'm not putting out a 30-minute TV show where like that's something, this is quick consumable content, as opposed to like that being a very long form style of content, and different production value, of course, and all that stuff. And it's a hard conversation to have, and it's a hard thing to swallow, saying like, I know I'm also part of it, but I've tried to err on the side of education and hope that helps with it.
That's all you can do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we try to leave the B-roll stuff is important to us. We try to leave the cameras on after the shot, and we try to, you have Sean Stahl who maybe has killed more Canada geese, and this is probably not even a far-fetched statement. Probably killed more Canada geese than maybe anyone, right now. I mean, that's really not that far-fetched.
No.
And you leave the camera on him after a really big go, and he's 15 again.
It doesn't get old. Yeah.
He's fist bumping. We're making jokes. We're doing this. We're doing that. That should show you that, no matter what and no matter where we are, that at the end of this is still really, really enjoyable. We're not doing this to just, you get away from that on there are some, there's some shows that are just, they shut down. It's like, man, it's just old hat to some of these guys. And I get it. It is. Guides are like that.
Right. I can understand that too. Yeah.
And it's just gets old hat, but that B-roll stuff, I like that stuff. I think that's educational. I think kids need to see that kind of thing. And, but I'd like to
totally agree.
Like to see some kids out there to, grind it and, get to a point, have a goal,
right.
But have a reality goal, right? Where, and I was part of that. I mean, a lot of my goals at a lot of times were not realistic. I did not, I thought you work for a call company, you work for a waterfowl company, and you would travel all over the place. They would, I mean, that's all you did, kill for money, right? I mean, everybody wants to be a professional hunt,
Yeah.
So I would just tell people, I mean, have goals, don't dream small, dream big, but get into all of the details and all of the information, and have a starting point and that type of thing. So
and educate yourself on bird identification, the rules, and just making yourself there's also an etiquette to it as well, where if you're hunting public, you don't set up right on top of people, and you treat others how you would want to be treated inside the marsh. And I think sometimes that gets lost on people, and it's just a nice reminder.
I would say it to content guys too. I mean, you have a responsibility to know what you're putting out there. I mean, if you put something out there that looks like a dog's going to get killed, breaking dogs, and you know exactly who I'm talking about. It's in my home state.
I do.
If you put that stuff out there, and you have 100,000 followers,
Yeah.
you know, that's you're not doing the sport, and you're not doing yourself any justice in that.
Right. Well, you're not doing your
You know.
job. You know, that's your job is to educate, your job is to entertain. But when you're talking about something like waterfowl, where, you know, there's lives at stake, there's firearms involved, like it goes
Yeah.
beyond just entertainment. Like at that
Yeah.
point, you're influencing people, and you need to take that responsibility seriously.
And it's not live. I mean, we don't have
No.
live, you know, we don't have live waterfowl anymore. So you have the
No.
ability to come home and look at it. So
Right.
when you come home and you look at it and you see something, because we all make mistakes. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh yeah.
I've been in a blind with a lot of guys who have rung bells and did, you know, or whatever, but
Yeah.
you're not going to see it on camera. I mean, because
No.
we're able to see it, you know, we're not going to post it. We're you know, if we see something like that, we'll travel to a lot of places, and a lot of people with their dogs, they, you know, they want to hunt with their dog with Sean's dog.
Yeah.
I mean, that, you know, that'd be pretty cool.
I believe
right? If you had a
that, yeah.
dog. Well, what if that dog, you know, what if that dog breaks? What if that, you know,
Right.
all of that's ruined footage.
Of course.
We're not going to post that. We're
Yeah.
never going to post guys, you know, shooting over a dog that's running out and doing that kind of thing.
No.
And so all of a sudden you sit back and you're like, this is kind of ruined footage. Like you know, you shift and you do something else or whatever. But I would tell people you have a responsibility.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, it's not live. You're able to go home and look at it. If you see a mistake, you know, and if you see a mistake and you want to educate people on the mistake, that's one thing. But
Right.
you know, but don't post it to post it.
Well, don't brush it off like nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the biggest thing is if you try to normalize it, then that's just a big, it does a lot of hurt to the sport more than anything else. Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
Well, on that, Eric, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your time. Is there anything that you want to plug before we get off here?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think I said where we're kind of going and everything else. And I just, thanks for the platform. I love talking to different people, different places, and that type of thing. And so
well, I appreciate you coming on and telling us about the Tanglefree story and what's coming down the pipeline, and more importantly, your story. Hopefully people can take that and learn a little bit from it, and hopefully they learn something from this podcast, if nothing else.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
You bet.